We learned yesterday that Richard Lewis, the longtime stand-up comedian and comic actor, died Tuesday night after suffering a heart attack in his Los Angeles home. NBC's Sam Brock gives us a look at his long and accomplished career.
I told him I was happy and I didn't need the therapy.
You told him what?
I told him I was happy.
That's what I'm telling him. How can you steal my termination?
Beloved American comedian and actor Richard Lewis.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I've never felt better in my entire life.
Most recently known for his multi-decade role on the HBO show Curb Your Enthusiasm, showcasing his charming combination of neuroticism, principled stances, and surplus energy.
Okay, you're not going in.
Why do you take this so personally? This is just business.
No, it's not business. What are you doing? You're not going in there.
I am going. Don't tell me what to do.
Has died at the age of 76. His spokesperson saying that he passed away peacefully at his home in Los Angeles after suffering a heart attack. Less than a year ago, Lewis announced he was stepping away from stand-up and revealed a battle with Parkinson's disease. The sharp-witted comic, known for his vulnerability.
You get set in your ways. I'm eccentric. I know I can't imagine having someone want to live with me now.
Opening up about his struggles with addiction and forming meaningful relationships on platforms like Showtime's I'm in Pain. In the 80s and 90s, he was a mainstay on the late-night circuit.
Would you welcome Richard Lewis?
This show is practically as important as having sex to me, and she knows that.
Decades later, his close friend Larry David writing tonight of Lewis, he had that rare combination of being the funniest person and also the sweetest. But today, he made me sob, and for that, I'll never forgive him. Their relationship captured on last week's episode of Curb.
Well, I have better news for you. I'm leaving you in my will. I'm tweaking it, and you're in it.
No, don't do that.
It's done. You're in.
In rhythm and under each other's skin until the very end.
Oh. NBC's Sam Brock with that report. And just a few months ago, Joe went out to the Curb production offices in California and sat down with Richard Lewis. And here's part of their conversation.
I was 50 when Larry came over my house. I was 50, and I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do now? You know, I still was going to be stand-up. I only retired stand-up after 50 years, like a few years back. But he says to me, you know, he tells me about this show idea. And he says, do you want to play yourself? But Larry says to me, well, you're not like, you know, Gregory Peck, you know, I mean, why don't you consider this? I said, all right, I'll play myself, because I figure if I play Richard Lewis, there's no way I'm getting an acting role again. Not knowing that this show is going to last for 23 years.
You really play yourself very well.
I do, don't I?
It's just like Ben Kingsley and Gandhi. Richard Lewis is Richard Lewis.
If Daniel Day-Lewis, if Spielberg wanted me,
exactly.
Richard Lewis is Abe Lincoln.
Right.
I would have went. You know, I would have gone like 80 and how many years? You know, it would have been a whole other film.
Let's talk about how special it is for you, how special it is for your friend that you're here in the final season. You've had a really tough 3 years.
Yeah, it's been really an interesting journey for me. You know, I finished stand-up after 50 years and on my own terms, the best I've ever been on stage. So that was good. I did it half a century, enough.
It's amazing.
But then all of a sudden I was just inundated with hell. I mean, I had back surgery, sciatica, and during that season, I'm not sure if it was before or after the surgery, the crew was so loving to me. You know, they would wheel me across Wilshire Boulevard in a wheelchair to get to the set.
Right.
But they did that because Larry loves me, and I love him.
And a lot of the scenes were in restaurants, so you could be sitting down,
yes,
right?
That was the first. That was the first time they helped me, and then I had 4 surgeries, and I was diagnosed last year with Parkinson's disease. So I missed one season except for one episode in season 11, and Larry and we both know that one of the funniest lines that we will ever do together, we're sitting, mayor is giving a speech, and I'm mocking him, and he looks at me and he goes, when are you going to die? When are you going to die already? And I was so stunned rather, by that, but it was so funny, and he brought it on Jimmy Kimmel, right. And Jimmy said, how can you say that? And Larry said, no, he was laughing, Larry, and Kimmel, he said, he's the only guy in the world that I could say that to, and who would understand it and still not care and love him.
And that love with the one guy that goes back 60 years.
Well, we were born in the same hospital. You know, he was already mocking me about my umbilical cord.
Right, of course he was.
I tried to, if only I could have lassoed him. But I'm doing well. I mean, and quite frankly, I fell into this advocacy role. I'm not sure if I am an advocate, but I talk about my drug addiction and alcoholism. I'm sober almost 30 years. And so that's part of my story.
Is that, do you consider that one of your great accomplishments?
Without question. You know, 30 years is a long time without a drink or a drug. And, but you know, I don't have a family. I got married, I think we got married, been together 25 years. I found a great woman who just loves me and has been my caregiver, particularly when it's been difficult with the Parkinson's. I couldn't be happier.
Upon word of the death of Richard Lewis, Larry David, which you really got a sense of their relationship in that interview there, he tweeted out this. He had a rare combination of being the funniest person and also the sweetest. But today he made me sob, and for that, I'll never forgive him. Elise Jordan, Richard Lewis was funny, but that was a friendship that literally started not in the crib, in the hospital.
Now, Richard Lewis was just such a sweet man, and that really came across even when his comedy could be biting. But I think what most came across from him was just his kindness. You know, I was a big fan, and I felt like a friend died yesterday, and I think that so many of his fans did too.
Yeah, so funny, Mike, but also so honest and so vulnerable about, you know, his addictions and his struggles with his health near the end as well. Such an important part of that show. He'll really be missed.
You know, the word vulnerable is key to understanding Richard Lewis. I never knew Richard Lewis until about 10 or 11 years ago. I get a text from someone identifying themselves as Richard Lewis, and it was the Richard Lewis. And I was surprised at the text. What is he texting me? I'm a nobody. But we developed a texting relationship and then a phone call relationship. And he would call about myriad topics, sometimes in the news, sometimes about politics, sometimes about himself. And what always came through, Elise mentioned it, you just mentioned it, he was both sweet, vulnerable, and terribly insecure at a certain level.
And he wrote a beautiful book that I started reading last night, and he spoke about his addiction, but I just didn't really know the depths of it, and it really is an important book and a contribution that will outlive his comedy even.
All right, coming